Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by Skillshare. In older films and TV shows, reading between the lines was often a lot more important than it is now. With stricter rules like the Hays Code dictating what could be shown and discussed on screen, screenwriters and directors often had to be more subtle in suggesting things about their characters, rather than just coming straight out and saying them. Even if it wasn't super complex subtext, that subtext was still usually there. In episodes like Zuko Alone, I feel like you can see Avatar embracing that tradition as well. After all, this was a show that aired on Nickelodeon, but it was trying to tell a story about three-dimensional human characters, some of which are genuinely cruel and evil people. Nickelodeon shows can't wallow in dark, edgy violence, so it had to be a bit more thoughtful about how to portray that, which leads us to the flashbacks in Zuko Alone. They are, to me at least, some of the best character and world building this show ever did. Zuko's father, at least at this point, is more of a powerful presence hovering over his entire life, rather than someone he actually gets to talk to very often. So most of the flashbacks are between him, his mother, and Azula. And these scenes are just packed with character detail, both big and small. I'm gonna try to dig into all of that this week, but I should probably say that I do still have a cold, so, apologies for still sounding 85 years old.
Defeat your enemies with the Air Slinger and Aang's battle staff. Recreate the movie with the action figure collection.
If anything becomes clear from these flashbacks, it's that the Zuko we meet in the first season of the show is trying very, very hard to be someone that he clearly isn't. Now, I've touched on this a bit in the past, but his obsession with the Avatar, and especially how cruel he could be, were more of an attempt to be the leader that he thought his family expected of him, not who he really was. And we see the seeds of that mentality here, with Zuko picking on a baby turtle duck just because he's trying to be more like his sister, who his dad actually respects. It's a really telling moment because he regrets it almost immediately. At the end of the day, Zuko isn't Azula. He can't help but care. And until this episode, that caring side of himself is something that he's tried to avoid. After all, especially once his mom is out of the picture, Zuko isn't exactly in a family that respects kindness of any sort. Well, okay, other than Iroh. Anyway, I think the most chilling scene in the flashback is when Azula tells the young Zuko that their father has been told to kill him by Zuko's own grandfather. So Zuko lays down and repeats over and over to himself that Azula always lies. And in this case, he's right, but what makes that scene work so well is that it's completely believable that she's telling the truth. It would not be all that shocking to see Zuko's dad kill him because it's politically convenient. And that one short scene gives us a ton of insight into what Zuko's life was like growing up. Another character I think was really deepened by these flashbacks is Azula. I gotta say, rewatching these episodes has given me a different perspective on her than I had on first watch. For whatever reason, I tended to remember her as really horrible for the sake of being horrible. And while I guess that's true, I had never really noticed just how calculated she is as well. She's not the hot-headed Sonny Corleone, flying off the handle and getting violent at the drop of a hat just because she thinks she can. She's much closer to Michael, someone who will do some truly horrific things, but with a lot of forethought behind it. Iroh loses his son off-screen in this episode, and Azula clearly doesn't care at all, mocking him for being unable to command after his death. But I really like the detail that she doesn't start doing this until after she receives Iroh's gift. While Zuko gets a very cool knife straight from the battlefield, she gets a doll. So it's clear to Azula that Iroh is of no real use to her. He doesn't see her for the talented soldier and strategic thinker that she is. So under him, she probably wouldn't have much of a chance to advance in the military. But if her father was in charge, well, that's a very different story, as we see throughout the episode just how impressed he is with her. So Azula trying to push Iroh out of the way isn't just cruelty, it's the kind of smart political thinking that her family encourages. And the fact that all of this is conveyed with just a few lines is the kind of smart writing that Avatar really impresses me with. But let's leave the flashbacks behind and talk about where Zuko actually finds himself in this episode. Desperate, hungry, and as the title says, alone. There's a moment when he thinks about robbing some travelers on the road, but decides not to when he sees that the woman is pregnant. One great little detail here is that this is actually the same couple that Aang and company cross paths with later on in the season in the Serpent's Pass. Anyway, eventually Zuko makes his way into a town that's clearly struggling. The desolate look of the village, and really the whole setup for the story, seems very influenced by Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo, where a wandering samurai makes his way into a small town that's basically being ruled by criminals. But Avatar's story goes in a very different direction. After making a few enemies, Zuko is taken in by a kindly family, and he forms a real bond with them, even giving the young son the knife that Iroh had given him in the flashback. And I think that's kind of a big deal. This knife obviously means a lot to him. I mean, it was the same knife that he used to cut off his top knot, a pretty meaningful moment earlier in the show, and one that symbolized his rejection of the Fire Nation. So giving it away is a more significant moment than it might strike you at first glance, and one that immediately backfires, as the kid tries to use it to scare off some soldiers, and pretty soon it's up to Zuko to get him back. The big showdown is very spaghetti western. Sure, it's a little predictable, with Zuko having to reveal the firebending skills he was trying really hard to keep under wraps. But I think the most interesting moment happens after the fight, with the boy Zuko saved immediately running away from him and yelling that he hates him. To this day, this is still a shocking moment to me. This show really went out of its way to show us that this kid looks up to Zuko. It would have been so easy to just give us that heartwarming little ending with the whole family, with them learning that, oh, not all Fire Nation people are so bad after all. But the show immediately shuts the door on this. They may have taken Zuko in when they didn't know who he was, but now they're horrified, and they make it really clear that he's no longer welcome there. What makes it a real gut punch is that we know he's not really welcome anywhere. Zuko is a wanderer with no home, and he ends the episode basically in the exact same situation that he started it in. Definitely not the kind of ending that you would expect from a Nickelodeon show. Overall, I think this is easily one of the best episodes of Avatar. It nails what good TV does best, experiments with a unique format, and gives us something that feels interesting and new, while also giving us more insight into a character that we've been following throughout the whole show. That ability to slowly peel back the layers of a character is something that I think TV should always strive for. Watching Zuko struggle to go from the petulant and angry villain he was in Season 1, to the much more reflective, sad hero we have here at the midpoint of a great character arc, is the kind of thing I want from pretty much any kind of serialized storytelling. And the fact that it did all of that while airing on the same network as Dora the Explorer makes it even more impressive. This is the third time I've revisited Avatar for a video, and every time I do, I'm reminded of just how great this show was at drawing complex, interesting characters out of what could have been very straightforward hero's journey material. And few episodes sum that up better than Zuko Alone. If you also consider yourself a creator but don't quite know what to do with it yet, then I have to recommend Be Your Own Boss: Strategies for Launching Your Creative Career. It's a great class on how to use your skills to become an independent artist, no matter what your field of creativity is. It's taught by an expert in graphic design whose work has been featured in the Washington Post and Vanity Fair, all while working from her studio in Berlin. If that sounds like someone you'd like to learn from, check it out on Skillshare. That's not all though. Skillshare has over 25,000 courses to pick from on everything from creative writing, marketing, business, and a lot more. So click on the link in the description below and get 2 months of great classes absolutely free. Get started today and go to skl.sh/captainmidnight24.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.